You wear the shit out of a flat iron, don't you?
I do.
I can tell. Because it's perfection.
Still easier than curly.
Okay. Are you guys ready to party?
Wait. No. Not yet.
Like it's the greatest year in film?
Like 1999?
Oh my God. Okay.
Heck yeah.
I'm Kristin, and with me today is my cousin Sarah.
Hey.
Who designed our awesome, adorable artwork. And Brenda. What? What are you?
Who am I?
Say hello. She designed me.
Yes. I wanted to say that.
Oh.
Damn it.
Just to get us rolling, have you heard of Gorgeous George?
Isn't he a wrestler?
We'll talk about Gorgeous George.
I have not.
We'll get into that later. Because today we are discussing Stigmata, aggressively handsome clergyman.
Woo-hoo.
Yes.
I'm glad we all agree.
Which is why I wanted to know if we could curse, because
Goddamn.
Hells yes.
fucking Gabriel Byrne.
Oh my God.
Jesus. All right.
Damn.
This is kind of one that I picked because I needed it to happen, and I threw you on there, Brenda, because we had watched it before. You surprised me, Sarah, that you put yourself... I didn't know that you had seen it. Have you?
I remember seeing it when I was a lot younger and being all about it because it was very edgy, and at that time of my life, I wanted to be edgy.
Yeah, totally. So the first time you saw it would have been closer to release than...
Yeah, I was pretty young.
Yeah, I don't know how old I would have been, but it was definitely on a VHS that we had. Like, we didn't just rent it. I watched it several times. What do you remember about it?
Well, first of all, I am a believer.
Okay.
Not a Catholic believer, but a believer nonetheless.
That is something I kind of want to throw in early is a disclaimer that this is Bible fanfic. So that's kind of what we're going to be discussing is the fanfic version.
Yes. But I think I liked it because of the goosebumpy, I knew I was right kind of situations during the movie.
As far as what?
As far as the things that I read in the Bible really are true. Even though it's a movie, and it's I don't know, it's tough.
It is interesting because it is half faith and then half bureaucracy.
Right, right. Which is huge.
Yeah.
It ends up to be huge in the movie.
A big Catholicism thing in general. I feel like Will and I were watching this last night, and that's why he said he's always been interested in Catholicism because of the bureaucracy.
Because it is all
like
about
he's curious about it.
Rules and who you can call what and who's the boss and what they can do. And
because he was asking me all kinds of questions last night after we watched it, because he knew that, early on in my life I was raised Catholic.
Right.
So he was questioning me about a lot of it.
All right, so let's do the summary right quick. When a young woman becomes afflicted by stigmata, a priest is sent to investigate her case, which may have severe ramifications for his faith and for the Catholic Church itself. So I want to start with you. What struck you? What was exciting? What did you notice?
Oh gosh, I mean, I will say this about every movie I watch first, is I notice aesthetic more than anything, and her apartment. Oh my! Do you remember the blow-up chairs?
The blow-up chairs.
Oh my God, the inflatable furniture.
Inflatable, and so much of it. And like, her apartment was huge, and I'm all, where is this? What apartment is this size on a budget that she cannot possibly have?
Exactly.
How did she afford this place?
To run through my list of the most 90s things in this movie, because, again, it is so many. Inflatable furniture was at the top.
Yep.
Roll-on glitter.
Oh, yeah. I loved me some roll-on glitter when I was a kid.
Gigantic acrylic rings.
Yes. The hair.
Little bitty butterfly clips. Animal prints. She had like some kind of throw on furniture. And then Chumbawamba, the song at the beginning.
Oh, yes.
Chumbawamba is possibly the most 90s thing about this movie.
Can you even begin to guess how many times we listened to that song? I mean, give it a try. Give it a shot.
Oh, gosh.
Give it a shot, Kristin.
We had that tape in the car for a long time.
Yes.
We listened to, had.
Well, I would listen to that with you whenever I came to see you all the time.
Green background and the creepy. That's a good tape, though.
I would still watch it. Listen to it. Watch it, whatever.
What else about the aesthetic? Like, not other than her apartment, which was wonderful. Okay.
It was wonderful, but how? How do you...
I was trying to figure out what it was because there was a lot of, like, Art Deco, like, was this a train station at one point?
It was a very industrial aesthetic overall, like every part of the movie.
Not a drop of sunshine in the movie.
No, very gray. And I know that was an intentional thing, but what kind of places are like that?
Pittsburgh, apparently.
I mean, I had no idea. And then, like, again, the fashion, you know,
yes.
She wore a lot of billowy, silky things, and you don't see people wear that now, and it was very unusual to me.
Like, narrow sleeves, except at the very end, like the little bell sleeves at the wrists.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it was because she had fucking holes through her wrists and needed to go to work. But
I mean, true.
But it was not out of place.
And just patterns, bright patterns everywhere. Things that you don't see people wear today.
Oh, for sure. Do you have something?
For me, it was probably more the iconic Catholic stuff. I was raised a Lutheran. Mm-hmm. Haven't been to church regularly in many, many years. I will go on a Christmas every now and then or whatever. But I have, and I don't know why this is, I sometimes think it's just because of the family aspect that I feel like a lot of Catholics have, like everybody knows everybody, and it's like, I want that. I want to be that too. Like, I've even considered converting, yes. But, you know, would I still go? I mean, I'm still as lazy as I am now, so I don't know if converting to Catholicism would.
I have kind of the same thought toward Judaism. Because, I mean, a lot of Jews are atheists anyway, and it's a lot of, like, you go to synagogue for the community aspect.
Mm-hmm.
But I was thinking about that because another movie that I've rewatched recently is Keeping the Faith, which also has aggressively handsome clergymen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, like, watching the Jewish rabbi character lead his congregation, and I had sort of the similar thing of, like, man, thought about it.
Mm-hmm. Give some plot.
Yeah.
Do you want to do that?
Give a little plot. Starting out in, I don't even know what country was that? Belo Quinto. Belo.
Brazil, I think.
All right.
Because he was visiting Sao Paulo and heard about this other church.
Right.
So Gabriel Byrne, fucking Gabriel Byrne, was there. His job is basically to disprove miracles for the church.
Right.
He works for the Catholic Church. And his job is to disprove miracles. So he's down there. He hears about...
his job is to prove miracles, but the way he sees it is, this is what I did. Like, he's kind of bummed out about it. Like,
he's very scientific.
My fucking job is to disprove miracles.
Right.
And it kind of gets him down.
Yeah. Which you can see throughout the movie, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But anyway, he's down there because Father Alameda dies, and he's this huge Catholic icon priest
in this little town.
This little town that everyone loves. And there's a statue of Mary who is bleeding after the death of Father Alameda.
After he dies, it starts crying tears.
Crying tears, yes. And so he goes down there to test the tears and check out everybody and prove or disprove. You know, that's what he does. So
Gabriel Byrne returns to Houseman, the guy that is ordering him places, and says, I would like to be sent back to this town. I want to do more tests on this statue. And the guy's like, you didn't even bring the statue back? Like, that's part of what we do. And Gabriel Byrne gets kind of like, well, but it means so much to the people there. Like, I didn't want to just...
cornerstone of their faith.
Which was one of the first things that struck me as sketchy about him. You know what I mean? Like, why would you take that away?
Right. About the older guy, you mean?
Yeah.
Especially for, again, I'm talking out of my ass. I don't know anything about Catholicism, but it seems to me that they are a little more cool with having like, they have saints, they have relics, and the statue would be like a relic, right? Like, that means something to people.
Mm-hmm.
And to have him so, like, cold about it was kind of weird, especially with this story that Gabriel Byrne brings him of, well, the tears are warm, and the DNA says that the blood is human.
Right.
Like, he even said, like, he thinks that this is actually real.
Right. And Houseman is just like, well, that's not where I sent you. What about the other thing that I sent you there for?
Right.
And he was just like, rainwater. Like, it was oxidation. It was rust. Like, this was nothing. We want to go back to this town. And the guy's like, nope.
So immediately,
else.
there's some shit. Somebody's hiding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cut to a young woman.
Trisha Arquette, Frankie. She gets this package from her mother, who is also, ironically, in Bello Quinto.
Right.
Gosh, what else was in there? There was obviously the rosary, which is the big piece.
So there was a kid at the church when Gabriel Byrne was there, had stolen the rosary off of Father Alameda, who had just died.
Right.
And sold it to this white woman.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
Even a kid, I think, would know better.
It's pretty. Like, bitch, it's a rosary. You can get a rosary literally anywhere. It doesn't have to be this one. This other vendor is telling you, this means something. Like, this belongs to Father Alameda. You can't take it. She's just like, whatever. I'm out of here.
Stupid white woman.
So she sends it home to her daughter, who is a hairdresser.
Doesn't even know what a rosary is. Thinks it's a necklace.
Well, this is pretty. Throw it back in the box.
Right.
Whatever. At that point, you hear the ominous music of like, yeah, this rosary is haunted or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then she goes to throw up, I guess.
Yeah.
Because they needed a pregnancy scare. I don't know.
That was a weird tie-in.
Yeah, that was a red herring that didn't go anywhere.
No, that did not need to be a part of this movie.
There's one of the things I read was that needed to be in there so that they knew she was straight. Because she hangs out with her best friend and they sleep in the same bed and like, she can't be lesbian.
Because that matters.
Yeah, I don't know.
What?
So she has to fuck a dude and have a pregnancy scare, I guess.
1999, I guess.
Sure. So this young girl is in her apartment, taking a bath, eating an apple.
Which
in the bathtub
again.
Because that's what we all do.
Right.
I don't know if that was that supposed to be some kind of Eve, like, fertility thing? Like, I don't know if that was supposed to mean anything.
Oh.
I didn't think about that at the time. Maybe it was. If it was not very well, it wasn't made very obvious.
Because we're still in the thick of pregnancy scare at this time. Like, there's a shot of her hand grazing over her belly.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And
that was like quite a beautifully cinematic shot under the water of her.
A lot of the movie is very pretty.
Oh my God.
And then Dove starts flapping around the room and scares the shit out of her.
Yeah.
Well, weird. I got
But
this
like,
bird
she
in
doesn't
here.
even get out of the tub.
No.
Like, if there was a bird flying around in my bathroom, I would freak out and
While you're
try to
taking
get
a bath,
it out.
yeah.
Feather falls into the bathtub, and then the demons start doing something. I don't know.
Some demonic thing.
Yeah. She suddenly has these wounds through her wrists.
Mm-hmm.
And there's blood all in the water, and there's creepy music, and she's screaming, and she's being pulled underwater. And I guess her friend finds her.
I wasn't clear on how that, like, I assume that has to be what it was, but I wish they had, taken 2 minutes and explained.
Yeah.
How did you get to the hospital?
But her friend is definitely there with her. The doctors assume it's self-harm because there's just giant holes through her wrists all the way through.
Bitch, even if you are self-harming yourself, you're not going to stick it all the way through. Like,
first of all, there are more efficient ways.
Right. And that's some pretty hardcore self-harm if you're sticking something all the way through.
Yeah. And the thing that, I don't know if she's a doctor or a nurse or something, she comments that the holes are both exactly the same size, in the same place, on both of her wrists. And that she missed the main artery by less than a centimeter, which I'm like, well, in your wrist, like a centimeter is a huge amount of space, so of course. Mm-hmm. But anyway, that was suspicious somehow. It only bleeds when I touch it.
So don't touch it.
Yeah, so maybe don't then. Cool. So I think after this, Gabriel Byrne has a friend in Rome, I guess, at the Vatican, that is a linguist. That is working on and he starts talking to this guy, and they have some kind of conversation about the bureaucracy, basically. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I don't remember how it comes up, but they talk about this document. Were they talking about Father Alameda at that point?
I don't think they were at that point, but they were talking about how he's working on translating Gospels.
Right. And that the most sensitive documents are split between the Dominicans, the Franciscans, and us Jesuits.
Right.
Us. Yeah.
So it's for sure then,
exposition. Huh? With these sensitive documents, you only get every third page.
So not any one single group knows the contents.
Everything, right.
Yeah.
Which becomes important when we're looking at Houseman being really suspicious.
Yeah.
So she goes back to work.
Yep. I don't want to be the one doing all the talking, so if you have that next note, that's the baby vision.
That's the baby vision. That's the baby drop. That's what I call the baby drop.
Yeah. Good old baby drop.
Mm-hmm. So she's working in her salon doing someone's hair, and she's not really with it quite yet. She looks out the window, and she sees a woman across the street wearing a coat with a hood on it, and holding what appears to be a baby in a red blanket of some sort. And it becomes clear that the woman is about to drop the baby. So, of course, our heroine...
Mm-hmm. I know,
right? Our heroine starts to freak out. So all of a sudden she runs out the door, and of course her friend in the shop and everybody around her is going like, oh my God, she's going crazy again. What the hell? So she's running through all of this traffic, and she finally gets across the street, and it shows the woman dropping the baby, and then all of a sudden she gets there, and there's nothing but a red blanket laying on the ground in the rain.
It seems to switch points of view between the girl and her friend, because there are times where the woman in the blue raincoat is visible and times where she's not.
Mm-hmm.
And we know her friend can't see the woman.
Right. There's no baby. Stop freaking out.
There's no woman.
Well, and it was interesting to me that, like, nobody, like, tried to stop her or questioned her. Everything else around it just went on as normal. Like, if I saw a screaming woman running down the street saying, don't drop the baby, I would be...
Let's get that baby.
Trying to figure out where the baby is.
Yeah. The friend decides, all right, we've had enough of this. We're going home. We get on the subway. Do you want to take it over?
I can't remember what his name is, but there is another priest. Yeah, Durney. And she is... What would you say? Possessed again?
Sure.
I mean, that's not really a great word for it, but she has taken over.
She walks up to this priest on the subway and says, are you Andrew Kiernan?
Are you Andrew Kiernan?
Which is a very important...
Which is Gabriel Byrne's name.
Yes. But he says, no, I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think he asks if he can help her. She says, no, nobody can help me now. I'm fucked. And then she takes like a cross off of a nun and tosses it in the subway, and then all of a sudden
hell breaks loose.
She's essentially strapped up by some invisible force, and she starts getting whipped.
Visually, it's echoing a crucifixion because her arms are up.
Exactly.
It's not like when she was in the bathtub and there are just suddenly holes in her arms.
Mm-hmm.
She is in the shape of a crucifix, and there are lashes going through her clothes, like her clothes are tearing because there is something physical hitting her.
Right. Which I don't know how deep we're going to get into Stigmata, but that is one of the 5 wounds.
I guess it's not brought up until Gabriel Byrne gets this assignment to go see her in Pittsburgh that they even mention Durning first.
Durning mentions it when she's leaving the hospital, actually, and they kind of just blow it off. I mean, I think if a priest was approaching me to ask me a question like that, I would probably, ask him about it.
Right. Like,
it seems important.
Would you...
Why are you even following me here?
Yes. Your job is done, sir.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So then Durning becomes our link between this girl and the Vatican. Right. Because he gets the security footage from the train and sends it to Houseman.
So how fortuitous there was a Catholic priest.
Indeed.
Viewing.
With a beret.
You seem to have this beret obsession.
Who wears a beret? I think one of my favorite things is that Houseman says, all right, you're going to go look at this footage, dude. Like, this woman is being whipped repeatedly by an unseen force. And he's like, yeah, but the statues, though. Can we do that?
Well, and also I remember him saying something about, like, the publicity is unfortunate.
Yes.
Like, what? That is not the reaction that you should be having to this.
Maybe he's just that jaded. Like... This is nothing.
It's the impression I get of him, is that he is just very jaded by...
Because he is halfway convinced by the statues, but this is just another one of those, this is just some girl. So anyway, Houseman is like, I don't care. You're going to Pittsburgh. That's the end of it. Yep. I believe you wanted to go next? No? Okay. So she goes back to the doctor, and they're like cleaning up her back. And they're like, okay, well, obviously this isn't self-harm, but you're also having these hallucinations, and I don't know, maybe it's epilepsy. So they're doing all these tests on her. Yeah.
Which I don't get that correlation. Like,
and I love how it was just so 0 to 60, like, maybe it's epilepsy. Let's put some wires in your brain.
Epilepsy ends up
and she's like, excuse me?
Being whipped.
I don't know. Yeah.
That's basically what she said, too. You want to put wires in my brain?
Excuse me? But after this, I mean, she's got sutures in her back now, and she goes back to work because she's got to work.
Which, what? Like, I would be taking some serious time off. I mean, had this happened to
you got to
me.
pay for that apartment, am I right?
I guess so. I mean, every penny counts.
Coworkers start whispering about her, and she's like, "Can you stop?" It's like,
can we not?
Can we not?
I can hear you
whispering like it's a goddamn church.
I know.
And who walks in at that very second? But
beautiful,
aggressively handsome clergyman.
Yes.
White collar on full display.
Yes.
And she just is like, okay.
She takes that like a champ, man.
Yeah, she does. She immediately starts hitting on him, like you do.
Like who wouldn't?
I mean, yes.
Yeah. She says, "Do you have an appointment? Or maybe I can pierce your nipples?" Because for some reason, it's hair salon, nail salon, tattoo parlor, and piercing is all happening in this one room.
Dude, she just wants to see that body.
Yeah, I don't understand. And he's like, let's just start with a trim. We'll go from there. Continues to hit on him. I feel kind of weird calling a guy I could date father. What's your name? And then he says his name, which is Andrew Kiernan.
Mm-hmm.
She's like,
rings a bell.
Ding, ding, ding.
She kind of signals to her friend, like, did you hear this?
At this point, I have a question. Why does she know this name? Is it just one of those things? Like, why is she looking for him?
Well, I don't think she is.
I think she remembered because when she was on the subway or the train or whatever, and she was asking,
right? But why did she know the name at that time?
And that's a good question.
Oh, are we all just sitting here staring at each other, going?
My best guess is that she had already at some point been. I hate using the word possessed, but taken over by the unseen force, right? And possibly only knew it because of that.
I mean, she had a lot of visions when she was in the bathtub.
Yeah. That's true. She does start. It's like she's reviewing the things that people have been saying. Like she hears her friend's voice. She hears what the doctors. And I don't know why this possessing force would have chosen that name. Like, of all of the people in this web, he's not really even involved.
It's a bit of a just throw in.
Yeah, that's
the
just
plot.
I think one of those holes that you're supposed to not.
You just are supposed to accept it.
Yeah.
And they go to this restaurant. You know, he starts kind of explaining what stigmata is, the wounds and everything. And he starts asking her questions. And like, the first question has something to do with her faith. And she immediately just says, like, basically, I'm an atheist. I'm not Catholic. And he's like, okay, well,
we're done here.
We're done. I mean, that answers my question.
And she's like, the fuck?
Wait, what? Like, you're supposed to have my answers, man.
Yeah. It's important to note at this point that he has a tape recorder that he asks if he can turn it on, and she agrees. So this is now established that he records conversations. So the reason that he says this cannot be stigmata is because the only people who receive the stigmata are the most pious of them all.
So how are we going to explain her? How do we explain her? I explain her because there's a difference between being religious and being spiritual. She, I feel like, is an extremely spiritual person.
Sure.
I could see that.
So perhaps that is all it took. That's all it takes, is to just be open and willing. And
something that comes up later is the messenger does not matter.
Correct.
That's part of it.
Right. I think it's more a willingness to be open to that.
Sure. But the way Gabriel Byrne is sort of convinced to stick around is, she said, well, just look at this. She peels back the bandages on her wrists, and he takes a peek underneath, and he's like, yeah, well, whatever. And then she flips her wrists over, and there's more holes. And he's like, okay.
That's unusual.
That's weird. And he still seems kind of reluctant, and she's like, all right, look. And she whips this piece of paper out of her pocket and is like, this is my handwriting? I don't know what the fuck this says. And he says it's Italian. And he reads back this translation to her. What is it? Split a piece of wood and
I am there, lift a
stone and you will find me.
Lift the stone and you will find me.
And his response to that is like,
it's
well,
beautiful.
that's very pretty. Like,
she's like, fuck that. Like, this sucks. This is creepy.
I don't know Italian, man.
Yeah, like I should not be writing this. Like, So basically, fuck you. And she storms out, and he's like, okay.
Which I don't blame her. I would probably react the same way because my life is in chaos right now.
Yeah, she has all these crazy wounds that this guy was supposed to help her out with, maybe, and he just completely blew her off.
And I mean, if I'm going through something like that, I'm going to cling to whoever is like, I'm going to try and help you.
Right.
Like, I don't care if you're actually going to, I'm going to cling to your ass until I get my shit solved.
We're at least going to start.
Yeah.
So she kind of goes on her own journey of library books. She starts with the books on epilepsy because that's the one I think she probably wants it to be.
Mm-hmm.
But the montage kind of turns into all of these horrific old artworks of demons and pain and suffering, and that freaks her out, so she goes to the club with her friends.
As you do.
Like you do. And in the middle of all that, she gets the third wound of the stigmata, which is the crown of thorns.
Which I want to know, before this happens, her friends are so cavalier about what's going on. Like, her one main friend is just like, I think you're thinking too much about it. Well, no, I have wounds through my wrist. Like, this is not...
I got these emergency room bills now.
Right.
This is real.
My life is in chaos.
Yeah. So Gabriel Byrne decides, all right, I guess I do need to check this out. He is ringing the doorbell to her building just as she comes home, bleeding, freaking out. Again.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, she runs off when she sees him and into some weird back alley. Finds her on top of this abandoned, I assume, car with a piece of broken glass, carving what I assume is Aramaic into it, which I would freak the hell out were I to come upon this.
Because I personally don't know Aramaic.
No.
I mean, I don't think very many people do.
Here does.
Probably not.
No.
So this is his first real vision of
what she's
her
going
in action.
Through. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. She is screaming something in a language that he doesn't understand either. But she looks up at him with these two different colored contacts. One is red and one is yellow.
Yes.
They were very cool.
So she's obviously, this is her possessed moment.
Right. This is clearly no longer her.
And he with his
tape recorder.
Mm-hmm.
He flicks that on and records this crazy stuff that she's screaming at him.
Which he later plays back for his friend at the Vatican.
Yes, his linguist friend. Once she sort of collapses out of this possession, he says, let's take her somewhere safe, so he takes her to Durning's church. It's at that point that he calls his linguist friend, and his linguist friend is like, who is saying this? That doesn't really get answered right away, because it goes back to outside the Vatican, where Houseman seems to be getting a little more tense about this, and is like, Kiernan is done there, we're pulling him back, go get him.
AKA, you're getting too close to something.
Yes. She wakes up. He's very sensually cleaning up her wounds on her forehead. And he tells her, look, what you spoke, this is Aramaic. She doesn't want anything to do with this. She's walking around the church, looking at all the artwork and now wait a minute. Everything I'm seeing here, the wounds are through the palms, not the wrists.
This can't be Stigmata. You're wrong.
Guess what? We're good.
Facts. We get facts.
We get science. Is that actually scientists have discovered that people were crucified through the wrists because the hands.
No shit.
Yes, because the hands are not the hands would give way, they just
they
rip.
would totally rip off.
Yes,
exactly.
She's like, okay, so everything's wrong. No, not wrong, just inaccurate.
Icons are meant to be inspirational,
and maybe that's part of it because one of the commandments is no idols, blah, 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 which has always kind of confused me about Catholicism. But if it's just a representation and not the actual thing that you are worshiping, I think that's maybe what we're headed toward with that, is that maybe even the specific message isn't as important as what you are feeling and what you are doing. And it has no effect on the truth of things. It's just an image.
Yeah.
The image isn't important.
Well, and I think a lot of that, and I mean, I have not been a part of the church since I was a child. I mean, it's been many years. But I think a lot of it is more, you don't idolize people. But I think,
follow their guidance.
You said, relics are relics of people that you should be idolizing are okay.
Is that how it's explained? Because I've often wondered that too. I'm totally with you. That's something that's always...
I think so. I mean, again, I have not been part of the church in a long time, but that's kind of the impression that I get, is that when they say no false idols, they mean people, you don't idolize the president, for instance.
No worries.
Well, if only. At this point, I know I have played too much Assassin's Creed because it seemed completely normal that she was walking around the roof of a building, which I think was supposed to be her apartment building. I don't know. I can't figure that out.
I wasn't sure if it was her apartment or the church that Father Durning was at.
I cannot figure out how the exteriors map to the interiors.
Same.
Because
they don't.
Did she just take this? Her headboard is like this image of train. It's like this Art Deco train thing.
It was very cool, by the way.
Yes. I'm like, okay, so is this supposed to be some kind of lobby that has been converted into a weird apartment? If so, why is this building so tall? Train lobbies don't need to be 20 stories in the air. Wasn't there? I feel like there was a skylight in her apartment. Where is this? I have no idea. But anyway, he kind of lets himself into her apartment where she is writing weird shit on her wall.
Which I would nope the hell right out of there. Yeah. Let's be real.
He tries to talk to her, but she is completely in a trance. He starts taking photographs with this obnoxious flash.
Oh my God. Which was interesting to me, because if I were her and whoever was, possessing her at that point in time, I'd be getting kind of pissed about this flash.
And she does kind of turn around at one point,
fuck, the fuck are you doing? And I don't remember, does she say anything at this point, or does she? No, she just eventually turns around and walks back.
She's that old.
Yes, he asks, "Who are you?" And she says, "The messenger doesn't matter."
Which, creepy.
Yep. So she just kind of wanders back over. She
very zombie-like.
Yes.
It's an odd aesthetic they give her at this point in the movie.
Her skin looks aged.
Very white. Her lips are very cracked and white.
She kind of goes to lie down on the bed, and her apartment is so fucking leaky that just water is just dripping on her face.
Can I interject real quick?
Yes, please.
A thing that kind of struck me while she is walking back and pale and zombie-like, did you notice her shoes? Because that took me out of it.
Oh my God, the platform sandals
with socks
on. Yes.
What? It sort of took me out of the creepiness a little bit to see that.
The messenger doesn't matter, my dude.
I mean, yeah. She did see what was on the wall after this, and she was like, who wrote that?
You did. Is that what makes her kind of run out? Is that she's just 100% fuck this?
I forgot about the date.
It's so weird. He follows her out. She's I don't know, I guess trying to chill out. There's some kind of flower vendor, and she's picking out flowers, and they start to fucking flirt.
Which I see this type of thing in a lot of movies around that time.
Is that a real thing? I don't know.
Can you go and just pick up an individual flower and
I live in a big
what was it
city.
$2.49 a bunch. I'm I can put a shit ton of them in my hand and make a big ass bunch.
Heck yeah.
Okay.
So is it just me, or am I the only one that's ever had a fantasy about doing it with a priest?
I think that's...
No. Especially when they look like him.
Okay.
I mean, me, personally, no, but...
Oh, you too?
I mean, not to be super weird, but I remember being in, Bible school when I was young and still in the church, and we had a very young priest.
Yo, that's the thing.
church,
sometimes they're just young dudes.
Yeah, sometimes they're real attractive.
I'm out here telling you about keeping the faith, dude.
Yeah.
I am into blonde Edward Norton, okay?
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, they have the discussion that happens in every movie with a young priest main character. They have the sex talk of
of course.
Don't you miss it?
I mean, yeah. Let's be real.
What's not to like?
Have you seen me?
My dude. So they're having a flirting montage, and then she gets the fourth wound, which is the holes through the feet.
Right.
So he takes her home. He's cleaning up her feet, and she's holding up her hands. I had to... It took me a second to figure out what the hell she was doing. She was blocking her vision of him cleaning her feet because it's fucking
awful.
Got holes in my feet, man.
It's bad. I know.
It would definitely be one of the worst for me, I think.
So he tells her some more horror stories of historical figures with stigmata.
He starts talking about Padre Pio, I believe, talking about how he was a very devout man and how he lived to old age. She asks, how
many wounds did he receive?
How many wounds did he receive? And he's like, he lived to be very, he lived to be very old. And she's like, how many
fucking wounds?
And his response is,
it's so good.
2.
This beautiful pause.
In the most gentle
way
he possibly could have. Which point I would probably cry.
And that's the thing. She's like, I'm done.
I'm dying.
I've got 4. Like, this is killing me. This is killing me. So it's at this point that he is faxing the photos of her automatic writing to his linguist friend.
He sees, like, the first one.
Yes. And he says, there is a gospel that we were working on that was entirely in Aramaic, which is weird because most of the gospels are a little bit later. And so they're in Greek or they're in Hebrew or they're in something else. But Aramaic is what Jesus at the time would have been speaking. And so this is probably a little closer to
his own words.
Yes.
I think what he...
does he say at that point that that project got pulled?
Yes.
Okay.
And I can't remember if it's now or if it comes out later, but that is a project that Houseman pulled.
Okay, it was him specifically.
Right. That may have been later. I'm not sure. But he sends these pictures to him. He sees one, and he sees the first one and says, how many of these did you send? Don't send any more of them. Forget you saw it, which I would...
Dun, dun, dun.
I don't want to have any part in this if you're that freaked out about it.
Who is he showing that sees the reflection in one of the pictures and asks, who is that? Wasn't it just you two in the room? Who is that?
Was it Father Jernigan?
Possibly. Yeah, I think so.
I think it had to have been.
think so. I think you're right.
It's hard to recall some of these things that seem unimportant while you're watching it and are clearly important later.
So I watched this movie twice this week, and the first time I don't know how much attention I even paid to Durning.
Same.
The second time I was like, dang, he's like actually kind of the glue that ran through, that tied everything together.
He's an important character that you don't think about.
Yeah.
But yeah, the reflection in the picture
shows the old Brazilian priest that had just died.
Mr. Alameda.
Uh-huh. So we can infer
that
somehow he is possessing her.
Correct.
And I think it takes a little bit of figuring out how, doesn't it? Or does he know that the rosary...
I don't know if that ever comes back around.
It's one of those, you just infer it because we know. We see that came from Belo Quinto.
I mean, there is, toward the end, she is holding a rosary, but I don't know if it's even the same one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know that they ever make that connection.
Just the viewer does.
Right. You were saying that the lingo's just telling him, don't send me any more of these.
Right.
Because he is being watched in the library.
Right.
By the Bel Giorgio.
Mm-hmm.
Man, the previous pope, which one? Benedict, the last one, who quit, is like still living at the Vatican with this other archbishop who is like so fucking handsome that like there has actually been a fashion show that was like inspired by his beauty.
Really?
Like, this is real life. This is not kidding.
This is our world.
This man is called Gorgeous George because he is a beautiful man.
All right, I've got to...
Yes.
Can we look him up?
Please do. Please do.
Gorgeous George.
So he's got some kind of...
So that he's not a wrestler.
Georg something, some kind of German-ass last name. Pretty sure there's an umlaut.
Dear Lord. He's very pretty.
Holy shit.
And this is why many people have fantasies about priests.
Like, yo, there are better pictures than that, too.
So, okay, explain.
So, I mean, there's just rumors that, like, this pope that quit is fucking this man, and, like...
They're very close in a lot of photos.
Yes! Look at this! Yo!
Give me that phone.
Yeah, if you go back and look at some of the Google pictures, man, they're together.
And
so when is this? This is like now?
This is right now. Like, there are theories that this pope that quit because he was a horrible person is still pulling the strings behind Francis because he's got a better image.
Mm-hmm.
Than this?
What?
Oh, image.
Yeah.
Not face. You didn't say face.
Right. Yeah.
Damn, girl.
So anyway, that's just who I had thought of every time that other dude with the horrible accent in the background was like doing the bidding of Houseman. So yes, the Bel Giorgio is the one who is watching the linguist.
You know we're all going to hell, right?
Yes. So he tattles.
Of course.
He actually brings Houseman a printout.
Yeah, like he actually goes back and somehow finds these deleted images.
Yes.
And prints them.
Technology.
Yeah.
And Houseman kind of freaks out. He's like, do you know what this says? And the dude's like, no, I don't know what the fuck this is. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And you never will.
Mm-hmm. So the linguist at this point actually does his own thing, and he calls up this other translator and tells him that the missing Jesus gospel has turned up.
Right.
Because this linguist, his friend that he just called, and Alameda were the three that were working all together on this one gospel.
The long-haired guy.
They were the gospel commission, right?
Yes.
Those three.
So Gabriel Byrne goes back and visits Frankie. This is the girl. Is that the first time we've said her name?
Yeah, I think it is.
Patricia Arquette, Frankie.
Yes. And she hits on him so very hard.
Damn.
Of course.
Girl. And he does a pretty good job at resisting. Like, he lets her kiss him, but he also turns around and she starts getting pissed. And I'm okay. This possession thing.
Oh no.
Okay, is it a demon? Is it Alameda? Is it Jesus? Like, what is how many people are in her right now? Like, what is happening? Because there's like this, she's beating up on him. Like, she's like throwing him through the glass window in her shower, and he's just like, he doesn't do anything.
No, he fights back in no way, shape, or form.
Right.
Which, I mean, to go back to your question, how many people are in her? It is an interesting question, because I feel like at one point they mention stigmatics are very open to all kinds of...
Right. The closer you are to God, it's something about, like, you're closer to temptation somehow.
Right.
Because I don't know if you're, like, maybe closer to truth, and evil things are also truth. I don't know if that's maybe part of it.
Maybe.
But then also, like, if only the most pious are afflicted with the stigmata, like, why? Is it just to understand what he went through?
Maybe to be the most pious means you are also the most open-minded, like the most willing to accept those truths.
I mean, you would have to be sensitive in some way.
Exactly. So I don't know. It's a very interesting...
And we know she's probably only sensitive because she is haunted by this rosary.
Right.
And they, at some point, do say that Alameda had some of the stigmata wounds.
Right.
Which explains, apparently, how she got it. Mm-hmm. But I just find it's, like...
very unrealistic.
I don't know. I just can't figure out the logic there of, if this is supposed to be emblematic of Jesus, then why is it a demon?
Right. I mean, I think this is one of those movies where you kind of just have to ignore logic a little bit and just roll with it.
An evil demonic thing that was done to him, so maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
Maybe.
I'm almost there. I'm almost on board.
I think I feel that way through a lot of it.
So she's beating the shit out of him. She grabs a knife and starts slashing her arms. She's screaming in a British accent with a man's voice.
Because who doesn't do that?
Yeah, like you do. And she, like, reopens her wrist wounds with this knife.
And is this the point where she's screaming blood of Christ?
Yes.
Blood of Christ over and
Isn't
over.
this what you want?
Right.
She falls back on the bed. She then levitates.
Right. She's still horizontal, levitating, and then all of a sudden it's a very quick snap upwards.
Yes.
Again, depicting a crucifixion.
And she begins crying blood. Mm-hmm. And then there are flashes of the statue crying blood so that you were positive that this is what was happening.
Oh, yeah.
Just so you knew.
Gotta make sure we're all on board here.
Yes. So he just kind of like walks up and picks her up out of the air. This third monk gets faxed a bunch of Aramaic. Mm-hmm. Kiernan lights 10 candles and finds the rosary. There are at least 60 candles lit in her apartment at all times.
Which what? And also, when all of this is going on...
chairs.
What is her candle budget, first of all?
Yes. And also, like, how does it not set the place on fire when everything just goes all over the place?
Maybe that's why she lets the leaks go.
Maybe. I mean, hey.
Good point.
Smart girl, I guess. Question mark.
So he finds the rosary. I don't think, there's nothing identifying about it. Mm-hmm. It's just, he starts to pray with it. And she said, I've never actually seen you pray.
He says, I haven't prayed in a very long time.
Yeah, and it's kind of implied that he has really been struggling with his faith.
Which I can imagine, being a scientist and also...
Right. He talks about, like, when they're on the date, he says, I was, an organic chemist, and that he became a priest because of the holes, because there were holes in the theories that science couldn't quite explain, and so he figured it had to be with God.
Right. Which is interesting to me, because I feel like a lot of times it would be the opposite, where somebody who is deeply devout would go the science route because of holes in religion. Well, and I feel like that would be such an uncomfortable position to be in, because when you know both sides of it, and what if there's still holes? What do you do then?
Yeah.
Where do you go? I think I would struggle a lot with that.
And I can easily see it going either way. Like, if you start from the faith end and go towards science, or if you start with the science and want something more, need something more than that. Did you have something else to say? You kind of looked like you were...
Well, I don't know when if I wanted to throw it out there a little bit later, like towards the end or whatever, but I'll posit it now, if that's okay.
Okay.
What if you were a devout Catholic and you are chosen? How do you think this would be different? How do you think this movie would have been?
You would have recognized the signs instantly, and you would have gone to your priest.
And you probably would have been a lot more accepting of it because you were devout instead of horrified and I don't want this.
Right, exactly.
I mean, it's still, I think even if you're devout, it's a terrible thing to go through, but you respect it.
Yes.
And you are grateful that you are chosen. I think that makes it a little different.
Like, that's something that Kiernan says initially when they first talk about it, was that it is a gift. She's like, can I give it back? This fucking sucks.
Great.
That's kind of what I was thinking about the rosary that her mother sent her. Even like, can I just not?
Yeah.
Can I give it back?
Yo, do you want this?
Yeah. That's a good question, though. I mean, I think being deeply devout would change a lot.
You'd still have to struggle.
Yeah.
Just like if you were, just like you're in the middle of a huge religious war where you're either not Christian or I'm going to kill you. If you are Christian, I am going to kill you. We are going to kill you. This is what we are going to do. We hate Christians, blah, 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 blah. You're going to be scared shitless.
Right.
You know,
abandon your faith in that.
Right. And can you do it? And
it's definitely a test of your faith.
Right. And I think that would be the same way with a so-called devout person in that position that she was in. Because it's still going to be scary as crap.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, they kind of mention for Alameda, who was going through it as well, how he was a deeply devout man, how he was a tortured man. And I mean, it just goes to show, I mean, it obviously had to have tested his faith as well.
That's the thing. It folds back into that comment about the closer you are to God, the closer you are to temptation as well. So she gets Kiernan to lie next to her in bed because she just needs comfort. Like, that's kind of where she's at in life, is just like, I don't want to be alone.
And you have this hot priest. You have to insert some sexual tension into this movie. I mean, she recognizes, I think, that she had spooked him before. She says it's okay. And so they kind of snuggle. And it's not 100% platonic, but mostly, like, they don't do anything. Right.
It's at this point that Houseman and the Bel Giorgio are brought up to her apartment by Durning.
Of course.
Because he is the middleman, and
they are in bed together.
Yeah, of course. Like, there's a whole 10 seconds between the knock and when they come around the corner and he somehow hasn't stood up already.
At least his clothes were still on.
Yeah.
Houseman's pissed.
Yes. They all drive to some big church. I don't think it was Durning's church, but they went, I don't know where
they
was
went.
That.
I don't think they explain where it was.
No.
But, I mean, a lot of things are just not explained.
So, I don't know anything about the Catholic Church, and, like, is there, like, a main church that is, like, in each city that is ordained by...
Not really.
Like, that maybe the main Pittsburgh?
Most churches stand alone. So, I mean, that's kind of...
There's a diocese.
I don't know what that means.
Come on, Catholic girl.
Oh, gosh.
It's like an administration.
Yeah, I mean...
Catholic administration, I think. I'm not Catholic, I'm just guessing. No, don't be mad at me if I'm wrong.
I was like 10, so... But I mean, yeah, I don't think they really explain what this church is that they're going to. They leave it to the imagination.
Sure.
As they leave much.
They leave the girl with some nuns. Kiernan gets chewed out by Houseman.
Told he's not helping her, he's making it worse.
Right. And he's
or that
like,
she's getting worse.
Go to your room, go back to Durning's. And it is at Durning's church that this third monk that the linguist called, this third monk comes around and is like, he starts talking with Kiernan about this gospel.
They're in the cathedral talking about this gospel. He's explaining that this gospel is potentially the closest thing to the words of
Jesus Christ.
Right. But the church is not accepting it, essentially.
Is not down because the way he puts it, it could destroy the authority of the church.
Right.
By putting the power back into the hands of the people rather than a hierarchy.
Exactly. I mean, they're saying that it will destroy the church because, I mean, what were the words exactly? You know, split a piece of wood and I am there. Lift a stone and you will find me.
Yes.
I am everywhere.
Yes.
Jesus, the kingdom of God is inside you.
Yes.
Not in
a building.
Not in a building.
You don't need the huge building. You don't need the contributions that Catholics must, as I understand it, give. You don't need the idols, the icons made of gold. And well, how else the hell are we going to make any damn money if we don't have all that shit coming in?
Yeah.
Which is important later. I mean, this will come up later where Houseman essentially says, like, I am the church. I am the church. Bitch, no. You're not.
Hell to the no.
He feels very personally threatened because he is...
Which, I mean, if I were on devil's advocate, so to speak, I would be totally that way as well.
Right, like
I
this.
mean, you're taking away. You're also taking away my.
This is my way of life.
This is my well-being.
What's that word? My paradigm. I mean, you can't just. It's not that easy when you've lived. I mean, it's easy for you and me. I mean, I'm much older than you are, but still. I probably stopped the church about the same time you did. And it was ingrained. Of course it was ingrained, but still, I mean, it's not all that for me. It
is not what you are.
It is not what I am. And I feel bad about that. Don't get me wrong. I wish it were more.
And I mean, for me,
I miss it.
I was very young, so I feel like the shift was not a shock to me. It was just more of a mental. It was very logic founded in my head, and I it might be unusual because I was that young when my faith. I don't even want to say my faith was tested, but when I stopped believing. I mean, I've always been a very scientific thing, much like Mr. Kiernan. But I can imagine if that is being tested for Houseman in this case, like that would be very difficult. What do you do after that? How do you live your life?
This is the only thing you know.
This is my entire life.
I mean, and it's probably not just him. Like, there are a lot of things writing on this. Like, this is an entire structure of people that would be upended by this.
Right.
And so Kiernan hears all of this from the third monk and is like, well, fuck. That means he's going to try to squash this. He knows that Houseman is threatened and that he will probably do he's been cock-blocking this whole time. So, he knows that he does not want this to get out.
And he knows that he is with Miss Frankie.
Yes, exactly. So Kiernan drives back to this big church.
Quickly rushes through this building.
The Bel Giorgio does a very bad job of guarding the door. Houseman is just in there, trying to choke this girl. It starts as some kind of exorcism.
Which that's where I thought it was going. But then it did not go there.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know if so either it wasn't working or it was working just the way he thought and he didn't want that spirit back out there. He just wanted it to die with her.
Right. Which I don't think that's how that works.
No, probably not.
I mean,
but
so Kiernan bursts in, finds him choking her, puts a stop to it because, I mean, that's my girl, man. And what? He basically tells him, I know everything.
I know everything. I know what you're trying to hide.
You're done.
Yep.
You're done, sir.
You're done, sir.
We're done here.
So, I don't know. Does Houseman just, he gets kicked out of the room? Everything is set on fire for some reason?
Yeah.
Something happens with the fireplace in this room, and...
So this is... I feel like I sort of get what they were going for, but I don't think it was very well done. Because she is, once again, possessed by Father Alameda. And I think Alameda is testing his faith. That's why I think that's why he makes that slow walk through the fire, because he knows that he's not going to be hurt. But it's weird. The way they went about it was not, I don't know. Because earlier in the movie, was it Alameda or was it demonic figure asking, how's your faith these days? How's your faith?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Remember?
Yeah, that was...
So it's Alameda knows, and he is trying to, bring him back,
So then what is he getting at?
I mean, it's almost like he's trying to transfer his knowledge from that gospel to someone. And
But he's just like antagonizing him.
Why is Kiernan the chosen person in this?
I mean, he's around, I guess.
Yeah, because he's pretty.
Right place, right time. I don't know. I did think it was cool that Kiernan was like, it's basically a fantasy movie, and Kiernan is the magician, and he knows the spells that will make this happen. I guess things get exorcised, and he picks her up, and it becomes La Pietà, and he's carrying her out of this fire, and
to this beautiful scene outside.
Yes.
She goes after a dove.
Yep.
Always doves.
I don't know, something with, doves. And I guess that's the end?
Sort of. Like, they sort of end it here, and, like, you never really find out, like, oh, is she okay? Is it over? But then later, we come back, and Kiernan is at this church in Belo Quinto once again, finding the scrolls. Because that wouldn't be protected more than what it was.
I was fucking horrified that there are these 1,800-year-old documents that he is just fucking unrolling without gloves on the fucking floor. I was just...
I brought this up with Will when we were watching it last night, and I was like, why are you touching this? Like, leave it.
It's actual leather.
Fucking leave it alone.
And get the Smithsonian down here, though.
Any sort of document specialist probably had a heart attack.
Oh my God, I did.
Right.
I know. No gloves, nothing, like, because the oils from your hands aren't gonna fuck that shit right up, you know? And that's where we end, basically.
So did you watch it on streaming?
Yes.
Okay. So that was the theatrical ending. The DVD had an alternate ending with I don't know. Yes. I guess I've seen this movie 3 times this week. Because I watched it first the theatrical, and then this director's version, and then once more with you.
I'm intrigued. So what is the alternate ending?
The alternate ending is, like, they walk out of the fire, he's carrying her outside, and she dies.
Oh. Okay.
And it's sort of implied that, like, her walking around and finding the dove, like, that's a vision of his that he's having for some reason. And then that's pretty much it. And then they have the same scene of going back to the church in Brazil, and he gets the documents, but then he leaves a photo of her on the altar. Like,
okay.
And that's...
I mean, I guess that sort of answers my earlier question of, is she okay?
Yeah.
But not really.
It's different enough that she does survive in the theatrical ending, and that she does not in the director's.
Okay. I wonder which way they really wanted it to be. You know what I mean?
I wonder if the theatrical cut has something to do with test audiences.
They want to see what people want to see.
Yeah, how they take it.
But it makes me wonder what the real vision of the end was supposed to be.
They filmed both, and like they didn't, like, it was still the date, like it was still it hadn't gotten the final treatment, so like it never made it all the way through, I guess. But I don't know. I was thinking about it, and I would kind of have to agree with the theatrical version of, okay, this is a movie. Like, in real life, if this had been a real thing that happened, she would have died. But I just don't think that in a movie she should have to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, she's, like, at the beginning, she's talking to this doctor who's saying, like, this is clearly self-harm. And she's like, I love being me. Ask anyone. Right. And then to have her go through this fucking horrible traumatic experience and not come out the other side, that sucks.
Yeah. I think audiences would hate that.
Yeah, totally. That is very unsatisfying. As in, like, again,
leave her picture on. That's such a weird.
In real life, it totally would have been that, because real life doesn't care.
Right.
But as a narrative,
I mean, real life, she probably would have died much sooner.
Yeah,
than
totally.
This. I mean, the first wounds, you know.
Yikes.
But we're in suspended reality, so it's all good.
So I guess we can do some of the wrap-up questions, like, what doesn't hold up about this?
I feel like there's a lot of holes. Things that you just have to infer, things that you just kind of have to go with, because...
But it would have been that way at the time. Is there anything that, with 20 years between then and now, that...
Oh, gosh.
That doesn't hold up anymore?
I don't know.
Because I fucking love this movie still. Like, again, I saw it 3 times this week.
It was interesting, because I talked about it with Will last night, and he had never seen it before. And, like, we both admit it's a terrible movie, but I still love it.
Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah, I don't know. Things that wouldn't hold up.
It's pretty. Like, the acting is good. The writing is decent.
Right.
Like, it's like the exposition isn't too terribly awful. It's not like I'm the kind of obnoxious person that will just shout exposition when something is very blatant, but I don't think I really had that
any moments
in this.
That. I think it's interesting that we had both seen it very young. You know what I mean? I don't think it was that popular of a movie.
I don't know.
Well, it's probably because you watched a lot of the same stuff we watched.
Yeah.
Listen to Journey, REO Speedwagon. You're a child of mine.
And I mean, I think we've both talked about it before. We watched a lot of things very young that we probably shouldn't have watched.
That is true.
We were exposed
I'm sure was
to...
welcome.
Yeah. I mean, I'm whatever.
I mean, I think I honestly take it as more of a blessing. Like, I think...
I don't give a shit if my 8-year-old watches an R movie.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
It's the world.
Right.
Right. I mean...
I'm out here.
Yeah.
I guess that's pretty much it.
Yeah. I mean, I can't think of anything specifically that wouldn't hold up now. I mean, obviously...
Oh my God, one of the 90s things that I completely forgot was when her mom calls her and she picks up the phone by her bed.
Oh, the phones.
And she's like, wait, I have to change phones.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I remember it.
Because you have phones with a cord, and the cord doesn't go far enough, so you have to pick up the phone somewhere else in the house.
Not only just that, but the very, like, stylistic phones that she had.
So it was like the black and white thing with a pink face? Like,
yeah, like the phones were pretty.
Man. That was so 90s.
Yeah, God, I forgot about that. We even talked about that last night.
That phone might have been the most 90s thing.
Yeah, corded phones, man.
Oh, man.
Those were the days.
No, they weren't.
And no cell phones to be seen.
Mm-mm. We kind of talked a little bit about eating the apple in the bathtub.
Mm-hmm.
So then her vision of the woman in the blue raincoat, was that supposed to be a Virgin Mary thing?
I mean, I think it had
wearing
to have
light
been a tie
blue
into that.
And holding a baby.
I think it had to have been. I feel like the tie-ins to the Virgin Mary were kind of weird in this. Like, it didn't go anywhere.
Maybe it was more about imagery than any logic.
It almost felt to me like they were thinking of another direction to go with the story and then backed out at the last second, and those were just remainders of it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, maybe on the cutting room floor there's a whole
subplot of... Huh.
Because why else would they have the pregnancy scare?
Right.
Uh-huh.
All of this other stuff. Like, I feel like there's a whole other section of this movie that we don't get to see.
Because that gets completely cleared up. Like, like the second time she goes to the hospital, she says, "Did you run a pregnancy test?"
Right.
Yes. Am I pregnant? No. Was I?
Exactly. And that's the end of it.
That's... I don't know what that was for. Yeah, so you might be right that there's something else there that didn't make it.
I feel like there had to have been a whole other subplot.
So then what's the thing? What is the event or scene or line that is the distillation of how this film is represented? Like, what is, when you hear Stigmata, what is your image?
Oh gosh. I just immediately think of every scene where she is put in a position that looks like a crucifixion. That stands out to me.
I agree with that 100%, especially, the train one, because that was the first time that she had an actual witness.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Not only a witness, but
someone who
a believing witness.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it just snowballed from that point.
Which, can you imagine that scene nowadays in the age of cell phones and camera phones?
Right.
Like, there would be...
That's the thing.
Video
it wasn't
of that
all
everywhere.
over Instagram, Facebook.
It wasn't just that he had video of it. It was like he had to contact the train.
That unfortunate publicity they talked about would be so much worse now.
Yes, right. I think there is a gentleness and a reverence that they have for faith that I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
I could be taking that wrong because I don't believe. I don't know. Maybe somebody else would have a different thought about, like...
I think I agree with that.
It wasn't hokey like a horror movie would be. Like, you think about a movie like The Rite or The Nun, or it's not meant to just be spooks.
They treated it with respect.
Meant to make you think.
I would agree with, as somebody, again, who doesn't believe now, but grew up Catholic, I would agree with that. They treated it respectfully.
And the other thing that I was thinking of was, like, this could easily have been torture porn. Yeah. And I don't think that it was.
It wasn't. They didn't go out of their way to show those types of things.
There was a sex scene at the beginning, but I don't think she was necessarily sexualized.
And they didn't really show any, like...
And when she was, like, when she was, like, possessed and really trying to get him, it was shown as a bad thing. Like, this is going wrong. Which
if they remade this movie now, I think it would be over-sexualized.
Yes.
And, you know, you would see a lot more gore.
Which would be sad.
And I don't think that the movie didn't even blame her for... It doesn't shame her for being sexual.
Exactly.
Like...
I like that about it.
Yeah.
I'm glad they dropped the... oh, it has to be you doing it to yourself thing so quickly.
Yes.
Same.
You know, they could have...
They didn't victim blame.
No, right. Exactly.
The last 90s thing I had was they were smoking in a restaurant.
Yeah.
And there was
those were the days.
Actual ashtray on the table at a restaurant.
Oh, yeah. You don't see that now.
Nope. Man, we didn't even talk about his accent, which was barely there, but every once in a while, a little bit of Irish. Yeah, I'm starting to feel that this podcast is just going to be talking about what I'm into. Is that the
not when you get others in here that
I
don't know. Okay.
Follow-up notes are short and sweet. Gorgeous George is also a wrestler. 1999 lives on at geekspective.com, where you can find other silly podcasts like this one. You can reach out to this show on the social medias at Plitgif, Plitgyyif. That's Tumblr, Instagram, and Twitter, hopefully. And you can find me on Tumblr at Vague Rolls. So, I'll talk to you next time. Hope to see you at the next party.